So July 23rd, 2022, Armed Forces Retired Home located in Washington, D.C. My name is Jong-woo Han. I am the president of Korean War Legacy Foundation, which has more than 1,500 Korean War veterans interviewed, not just from the United States, but also from other 21 other countries that participated in the Korean War. We are doing this to preserve your memory, first of all, because it's been a long time. But at the same time, we want to honor your service. Most importantly, we are going to make this interview into curricular resources for the teachers so that they can use this interview when they talk about the Korean War in the context of the Cold War in world history. It's my great honor and pleasure to meet you, sir, and thank you for coming. Please introduce yourself. What is your name, sir?
My name is Marvin Flood, Marvin Flood.
Very interesting last name.
You said that before.
Yeah. What is your birthday, sir?
My birthday is May 12th, 1930.
So you are now 92?
92.
Wow. You look great.
I don't know. I don't feel so bad. I'm starting to.
Where were you born?
I was born in Iowa, here
Iowa?
in the USA. Yeah.
Yeah. But what city?
Clinton. The name of the town was Clinton. Clinton.
Clinton?
Clinton. Every state's got a Clinton. One business about it.
And tell me about your parents and the siblings when you were growing up. How many siblings you had, and your parents, what did they do?
Well, my father was came over, immigrated to the U.S. around 1890 or 1900, somewhere around that time. There was a big influx of people. He was from Sweden.
Sweden?
And he and his two brothers and a sister all immigrated within probably a 6-month period at different times. And they all settled in the Midwest. A lot of Scandinavians did that because the weather was familiar to what there was in the Scandinavian countries with the winters and stuff.
Many in Minnesota, right?
Sure, there's lots of Minnesota.
Yeah.
Lots of them in Minnesota. And my dad, he had one sister and 3 brothers.
How about your siblings?
Okay. They had 3 or 4 children. One died at 2. He was less than 2 years old. And then I had one brother who still is living, and one sister.
Got it.
Who was passed away.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
And myself. So we're all that's left.
Yeah. And what high school did you graduate and when?
I graduated from high school in 1948 from Clinton High School.
And then what did you do?
Well, the war is just over because of course, the war.
You mean World War II?
WW2, yes. That had been completed. And when we were all in high school, so we kind of felt cheated. But then all of a sudden this thing in Korea started.
Yeah.
And boy, we said, maybe we should think about that. We'll do our duty. Because a lot of people were getting it out, and they were needed to replenish the military because of the buildup in Korea. So two of my best friends and myself, along with probably 7 or 8 other people, all enlisted at the same time. And we enlisted in the Navy. And it was the biggest influx of enlistees since WW2. Because, 7 or 8 people out. The town was about 20,000. So we got our names in the paper.
When did you enlist it?
This was in February of, well, actually, this took place probably in around December of 1950. But it ended up, we didn't take our physical until we got to we all enlisted in the Navy, and we didn't take our physical until we got to the naval station, and I was rejected because of a hernia. So I flunked the physical. And I said, well, okay. I said, I didn't even know I had it. It was a thing that actually it was a congenital thing with me. And I wasn't even aware. I said, can't you guys fix it? And they said, yeah, we can, but we won't. So I had to go back home. And all the rest of them went into the Navy. And I watched them progress through boot camp and visited them a couple times and found out I didn't really like the Navy. Some of the things they did, they're always blowing whistles and doing things. And I didn't understand any of that. And we just being from the Midwest, we all thought the Navy was going to be the big deal.
So what happened?
So I went into the hospital, and I had surgery.
Surgery what?
Surgery.
Yeah.
To repair my hernia.
Aha.
Because nobody had insurance back in those days, and the surgery was cheap. The hospital was cheap. And I lived I was in a ward with 5 other people, and it was just nothing. Not like it is today.
So what happened?
Well, they repaired it.
Yeah.
And in February I was well, and then I went down to the Air Force and enlisted.
So that was February of 1951,
yeah.
and you enlisted again to Air Force.
Yeah, well, I didn't pass the physical, so I was never in the Navy.
Actually, you were not in the Navy, right?
That's right.
But you fixed it and you enlisted to the Air Force.
Yeah.
So where did you get the basic training?
The basic training was in San Antonio, Texas.
How was the basic?
Well, it wasn't any big deal. I mean, we're all strangers, and just learn to do things. It was 8 weeks, I think. Wasn't that long. And
from there, where did you go?
Well, they didn't know what to do with us at that time. And what they needed was people to work in aircraft maintenance, but they didn't have any place to put us, or to put me. They had selected me so they put me on a base to work on the flight line, just to observe airplanes. Kind of familiar, with Air Force terms and how everything works. And it was a place for me to wait. The base is closed now. They had a lot of these small bases after the World War II ended, and for training pilots. And this was one of those bases. And then eventually they put me on a train and sent me to California.
Yeah.
And go to a civilian technical school on aircraft maintenance.
And when did you left for Korea?
Well, I had to go through that tech school. Then I went to another tech school. And then after that, I went to Korea.
When?
It was probably ended up being about 19, I 52, or maybe a little later. I don't know, somewhere around that.
And where did you arrive in Korea?
I did not go to Korea. That's what
So you went to Japan.
I went to this base in Japan because what they had done is they were converting over the airplanes from World War II airplanes to jets. And the F-86 was the airplane that they one of them went into Korea.
Yeah, yeah.
The F-80 also went into Korea, but the F-86 they sent hundreds of them over there, and they dispersed them in Korea. And the problem was the bases in Korea had no real facilities to do the kind of maintenance that they wanted. They had to do different types of maintenance on those compared to what they've been used to doing in WW2.
Mm-hmm.
And so what they did is established in Japan. There was a Japanese base. It was actually a base that trained kamikaze pilots.
Mm-hmm.
It was a very small place, just a village, but it had big hangars. And what they
Where was it?
Suwiki. It was
Suweki?
Tsuike or something like that. Suwiki. You know Japanese?
A little bit. Yeah, okay. Anyway, so you just stay there.
No. What they wanted is they took that base and they converted it to a maintenance base.
Right.
And they called it a REMCO base, rear echelon maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
And what they would do is fly the airplanes in Korea and then ferry them over to Japan for 2 or 3 days of maintenance.
Right.
The routine time maintenance based on the hours on the aircraft, and then they fly it back again.
Uh-huh.
And what they did is they rotated crews in and out, maintenance crews, maintainers, and pilots also came over. And they had a little R&R in Suwiki, which wasn't that big, but it was there were some larger towns around there, so
yeah.
they could make it work. In 1950, Japan was really cheap to live in.
Right.
So okay.
So from there, did you go to Korea?
We went over there, but I came over as not part of the core maintenance, but as a training detachment to train people how to maintain or how things function on an F-86, the mechanics, if you will. All right?
Yeah.
And we ran schools there at Suwiki because all the maintainers came over there all the time. We would go over once in a while to check with the base, but actually we had no real affiliation with Korea other than training their people.
Right. So did you go to Korea or not?
Oh yeah. I went over to Gimpo.
Gimpo Airport. Yeah.
And Daegu.
And remember, was it before the end of the war or after?
It was. We still had F-86s over there. I don't know what.
Yeah.
Was
Mustang.
Yeah.
F-86. Yes.
Yeah, the F-86 was a Mustang.
No. I mean, talking about different aircraft.
Yeah.
So, were you in Korea after the Korean War or before the Korean War?
Well, when did the Korean War stop? Because they had the peace thing went on, peace talks. This was probably during the time the peace talks were going on. But they still flew over there.
Okay. Uh-huh.
And there were still They still had conflicts. I think they didn't have a ceasefire. I don't think at that time. I'm not quite sure what happened, but we sure kept flying airplanes.
Yeah. So, how long did you stay in Korea, in Daegu and Gimpo and so on? How long did you stay?
Well, I was probably over there all together, maybe at different times. I'd stay for a week or 2 weeks.
And then you went back to Sweki?
Because we did all our work in Sweki.
Right. So you've been traveling all around.
Oh, yeah, it was just all over the place. But they see, what happened is they didn't know what it would really take to maintain those jet airplanes. And they kind of went overboard on the maintenance factor.
Yeah. How was, what was like a Korea that you saw for the first time? I mean, it wasn't long stationing, but you were there in Gimpo and Daegu. Please tell me about the Korea you saw.
The Korea I saw, well, I went over there one time. It was in the wintertime. I spent a week over there, and all they had was tents.
Yeah.
And what they did with the tents is they put them on a platform, and put a hard side, and put a potbelly stove in the middle.
Yeah.
Froze to death. It was so cold. I've never been so cold in all my life. When I tried that.
But you are from Iowa.
I know it. I know
can be cold.
Yeah, but we can make heat. You know, the potbelly stove doesn't put out much heat.
How did Korea look to you at the time?
It was nothing.
Nothing?
No, I mean, it was just what I probably would have expected. You know, I didn't know what to expect.
Give me detail. What did you see there?
Well, I can't even remember, because I never did any touring around, because I was you know, the bases were pretty primitive. You know, the mess halls were primitive, but I can't give you any detail of it, because I can't go out and say, you know.
So your main base was in Japan, Sweki, and you went to Korea from time to time, and then bring the airplane back, and then maintain.
Well, the airplane, they brought the airplanes over, but that was on a scheduled basis. That was beyond my place. You know,
I know, yeah.
I would be. I don't know how they did all that. It was a logistic. I know it was a logistic nightmare.
So when did you finish your service in Japan?
Well, we pulled out of that business. We quit doing that in Swiki in sometime in 1953, you know, 54, somewhere around that. And then they moved us to Okinawa for some reason. Do some training down there.
So you went to the Okinawa?
Oh, yeah.
Oh. What did you do there?
With the same thing.
Same thing?
Just teach. I was a teacher. I was, you know.
Wow. Any episode you remember about the airplane that you saw completely destroyed? No, not destroyed, but has a lot of problem, or has been shot by the enemies? Or what was the main problem of the airplane at the time? Was F-86 was good one, or?
Good, it was a good one. As a matter of fact, I'll digress a bit. What happened when they bought the F-86s? They didn't know how long or how many they would lose to attrition, and the only figures they had to go by was WW2. WW2 was a different type of airplane,
right?
And so. But they had to procure the F-86 back during the time to build it up, because it takes some time to get them in the inventory. And they ended up building something like 8,000 F-86s.
Wow. A lot of them.
Well, I say a lot of them. You can't believe how many they built. But that's the way the military works. You know, they say, well, they knew that they had to build that many during WW2, and they just, so, but it wasn't a loss, because what happened in 1956, the U.S. was starting to build up all of their bases in Europe because of the Russian thing and lots of whatever. But they didn't have any bases in Spain. And the reason they didn't have any bases in Spain, because Spain was just finishing a civil war when World War II went big time, right? And Franco didn't want to really talk to the U.S. because the U.S. didn't help him during the Civil War. Hitler did. And so he was pretty much aloof during the time. Mm-hmm. But then they said, our State Department, whoever it was, said, what can we really do to help you out in your military? And he says, I need an Air Force. And
so you went to Spain?
No, what they did, they made an agreement with Franco to give him enough Air Force, mm-hmm. F-86s, brand spanking new, to equip his Air Force. And so yes, because they needed training, so they took us, and I've been doing that in Sawiki and Korea, so I went to the same thing,
right,
over in Spain.
Have you been back to Korea since then? No?
Never been back.
Okay.
I've been back to the Far East lots of times.
So do you know what's going on in Korea, Korean economy?
Oh, well, sure. I mean,
what
everybody
do you know?
knows.
What do you know about it?
Well, it's booming, going out of sight. Like, you know, it's just growing. You know.
What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's great, but I think they got trouble with North Korea. Mm. I don't know what they're going to do with that.
We don't know.
That's a big problem.
Yes. You should have solved that problem.
No.
When you had the chance.
Well, U.S. doesn't do the right thing at all places. But they were so afraid. They were really afraid. They didn't know what would happen with China, I think.
So, did you think that Korea would become like this today?
No. Well, no.
Why not?
I don't know. I didn't even think Japan. I went back to Japan, and when I got out of service, I was working for a company.
What company?
It was a small company that was made computers. This was back in the 80s. Computers were a lot different there.
Right.
A company wanted computers. They usually had to make them themselves. And we did that, and we sold them pretty much all over the world. Not a lot of them, but we sold them. We sold one to Japan. And I had to go over there and set it up. And it was just amazing, because I'd spent a lot of time in Sawiki. And then I went back to see it in early 80s, maybe. And it was altogether different. They had the bullet train.
What is the legacy of the Korean War and your legacy as a Korean War veteran? Do you have anything to say about it? What is the legacy?
I just don't know. That's a hard question.
Any special memory about your service in Korea? Anything that you still remember? Anything stick to you now?
Well, like I say, the tents and the latrines. The latrines just had a big long piece of wood and holes cut in them, just like our houses. It was just rats would run into
But now Korea is 10th largest economy in the world.
That's right. That's right.
Isn't that
It's amazing. It's
amazing?
just
Yeah.
how it happened, you know.
How?
Well, you know, it did the same thing in Europe. You know, they built Europe up. Germany came back real fast.
But Europe, before the war, Europe was the strongest in the world. Korea never been
No.
in that, position.
Well, it had always been colonized. The French,
By Japan.
yeah, well, during the war,
Yeah.
and then pre there, the French,
No, not French. China.
well, that was Vietnam. Yeah, it's,
But anyway,
yeah.
so Mr. Flood, any other message you want to leave to this interview? Anything you remember about your service as Korean War veteran?
Well, I was pretty young, and it was interesting, but I don't know. I don't know that I want to do it over again.
No, you don't want to do that.
No, you don't want to go back.
Right.
You know, kids tell me about legacies. Young people, they say, you know, would you do it all over again? And I says, with what I've seen now in this environment, in this economy and social world, no, I don't think so. I don't think I'd want to be a veteran.
Right.
I don't
You're
want
right.
to be a career man.
You are right.
You know.
So, thank you for telling me about your service. You were there in Swagdi in Japan, and you were the teacher, so that other soldiers can repair. And most of the aircraft that you,
And pilots, we worked on, pilots.
yeah,
They went to us training too.
yeah,
We didn't train them like we did the mechanics, but we had to familiarize them with the details that they probably didn't need all of the information.
right.
They-
So it's not just the soldier, but also pilots that you had to teach, right?
Yep,
Yep.
yes, sir.
Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.